Hello everyone, and welcome to this session, 30 tips in 30 minutes. My name is Jan Tore Pedersen, JT for short. I'm a senior consultant at CT Global here in Norway, and I was recently awarded the Cloud and Data Center MVP. I mainly focus on storage spaces direct and Hyper-V, Azure Stack HCI mainly, System Center products, software-defined data center, Azure, and Azure Stack. And of course, any other Microsoft on-prem solution. I have a blog at jtpeterson.com. I also tweet with the handle Jan Tore P. Recently, I also got involved with the System Center user group here in Norway, and I'm hosting events focusing on System Center data products. So this is going to be 30 tips in 30 minutes. So each tip is going to be pretty fast. So let's have a look at tip one. So the first tip we have is visit the official Microsoft Docs page for Storage Space Direct. If you're looking into Storage Space Direct, I recommend you to go to this web page and read everything. And what I mean everything, understand how Storage Space Direct works. It is not like setting up Hyper-V. It is a lot more complicated, so you need to know what you're doing. Tip 2. A lot of you probably heard the motto, well, it can be run on everything. And it can. But if you're going to be running it in production, you need to find a certified configuration from your favorite vendor at the official Azure Stack HCI page, which you can find here. There is at the moment a lot of different deployments you can do from vendors like Dell, HP, Lenovo, Dataon, Fujitsu, and a lot of other vendors as well. So you probably find something that'll fit your brief. There's everything from hybrid scenarios to all-flash to 2-node scenarios. Tip number 3. Again, going back to you need to know what you're doing to deploy storage spaces direct. So read through the tier 1 vendors deployments guides. If you're buying another vendor's hardware, make sure they have a deployment guide, and also read through these 3 guides. They are very thorough, they are very good, and they cover everything you need to know about deploying storage spaces direct. Tip number 4, Windows Admin Center. Most of you have probably heard about Windows Admin Center and should know this. But if you haven't and you haven't tested it out, please do so. It's a great tool to manage your hyperconverged infrastructure. It takes less than 5 minutes to install and gives you a good web browsed GUI of managing your storage spaces direct clusters. And you can download it at docs.microsoft.com. Tip number 5 is view your storage spaces direct cluster with Windows Admin Center. Here you have a very good view, overview of what's going on with your cluster. You can see there's no alerts. You have 4 servers, how many drives you have, how many virtual machines you have, if your volumes are okay, your CPU usage, memory usage, storage usage, and IOPS. And you can even drill down into volumes or drives to see what's going on. Tip number 6, disk latency outliers. This is a new feature that came in Windows Server 2019, and it's a really nice way of figuring out if one of your disks are failing. So when you go into the drives of your in Windows Admin Center, you can see at the bottom there is something called Show Latency and Error Statistics. If you click on this button, it will retrieve the statistics. It takes a while. It takes a few minutes for it to get this, and then it will show you the amount of how many milliseconds your IOs are doing. So for instance, you can look at thresholds here. So I have a lot of IOs that are over 1 millisecond. The next one is 4 milliseconds, so 12.47% of all my I/O is over 1 millisecond. But if I go drill down to the next stop, it will be a lot more in the percentage. And if you can see at the top on the right corner, it says average latency is 356 U, which is pretty good for a cached device. And it'll show you how much read bytes, total I/O, write bytes, and so on. Tip number 7. Now with drive latency outliers, there is some scripts you can run as well to get this out in a different format. And you can even script it so that you can get a report with PowerShell. So Cosmos shared these scripts with us a while back. So you should look at this page and see if there's something here that you can use. So how do you manage storage spaces direct? Well, with Windows Admin Center, you can manage a single cluster or a single Hyper-V server. But if you want to manage more than one cluster, you should use Virtual Machine Manager. It has a bunch of things you can use to manage, like you can do networking, you can do logical switches, logical networks, deployments, and stuff like that. I did a session about that in February on the Storage Spaces Direct Day. So on the MVPDays YouTube channel, you should be able to download or view the recording of that. So deploying and managing your hyperconverged S2D solution with Virtual Machine Manager. Tip number 9, designing a storage space direct cluster. So this is with every other Hyper-V environment. You should not go over 4 vCPUs to one physical CPU, but leave yourself a little bit of room to grow. So if you have like three something virtual on an average of virtual CPUs to a physical, that's fine. If you are at 5, maybe you should choose a bigger CPU. And another thing is with Intel, you have to fill 12 and 12 slots of memory. So it's either 12 or 24, depending on how much memory you have. And if you need to, maybe let's say in half a year, 2 years, need to add more memory, just fill the first 12 slots and then the 24 slots. But filling 24 will give you a better performance on memory. Cache drives. So for hybrid setups, the recommended is minimum 10% from Microsoft. I tend to spec from 15 to 20%. We've done a one that was 25%. This gives you more cache to capacity and allows you to have more of the active data in the cache, meaning your cluster will be a lot faster. For all flash, you can go as low as 5% of your capacity. Now, if you, for instance, buy an all flash server that has 24 slots, you fill it up with 4 cache drives and only 10 SSDs, you should probably be 10% cache to capacity with the 10 drives in case you want to add the other 10 drives so you don't go below 5%. And always use NVMe over SSD as cache. This is 2 things. One is that NVMe is getting very close to pricing of an SSD. In my area, it's about 10% difference in price from NVMe to SSD. But the other thing is you get so much lower latency on NVMe, and it's directly on the PCI Express bus, and you don't have to share the SAS bus with the HDDs. That can fill up your SAS bus. Networking. So should you do Rocky or iWarp? It depends. I'm a Rocky guy because I know how to configure it, as Rocky uses UDP. So it needs DCB and priority flow control to control if there's any congestion. With UDP, there's no acknowledgement that the package is received. So it's a little bit more complex to set up, but for any initial deployment. iWarp uses TCP, so it has the acknowledgement of if any package is being dropped, so it will retransmit. And it does not require DCB or priority flow control to work. But we do recommend DCB and priority flow control for iWarp. Let's say you have a 100 gigabit network and you have saturation on that, it gets overflowed, or let's just say 10 gigabit for that sake. If it starts overflowing your network, there will be a lot of retransmits, and nothing will tell your network card to slow down. So we do recommend priority flow control as well on iWarp in case you fill up the bandwidth of your network cards. The more packages you drop, the slower your network will be. CSV cache. In 2016, it's off by default. It is on by default in 2019. It's a simple command if you're running 2016 to enable it. In 2019, the default size is 10 gigabytes. In 2016, if you enable it, it's 1 gigabyte. And it only works as a read cache, meaning it will only cache the latest reads. So it will speed that up. There's no write cache. That's what we have the other cache for, the NVMe for. Another networking tip is jumbo frames. Do I need it? Yes, you do. So if RDMA fails, it'll fail over to TCP/IP, meaning your CPU will offload the traffic. With jumbo frames, you put more data into one packet, so it will not congest your CPU that much. And it's nice if you do live migration without RDMA, for instance, between two clusters that doesn't share the same SMB RDMA network. Then yes, it will offload the CPU a lot as well. If you're worrying about performance issues and you're thinking, is my cache, what is going on with my cache drives? Daryl and fellow MVP created a script to be able to check your cluster's cache binding. So it will also check to see if there's any drives that are not bound to a cache drive. It will also see if your drives are unbalanced. Let's say if you have 7 drives and 2 cache drives, that means you have 3 drives on one cache drive and 4 capacity drives to one cache drive. You should have an even number. So if you have 2 cache drives, your capacity drive should be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10s. Same with if you have 4 drives, so you should have either 4, 8, or 12 capacity drives. If you have 3, it's like 6, 9, 12, even. And another thing is size your cluster shared volumes correct. I recommend a maximum size of 5 terabytes. Why? If your volume gets detached, there's an error on your volume and it won't come online again. You have to run a scheduled task that is called data integrity scan for crash recovery. This scheduled task takes about 1 hour per terabyte used to scan. So if your CSV is 24 terabyte, which somebody I know had last year, and you filled it up with 20 terabytes, it will take 20 hours to scan through that volume and before you can use it again. So size your CSVs correct to the recommended size, to a size that fits you. Do not make them too big. If you have a virtual machine that has a volume of 10 terabytes, see if you can split that volume up and spread it over more than one CSV. I have a script on what to do, so go to the link in the presentation. Tip number 15, 3 nice scripts to know. and to use on your storage space direct cluster. The first one is show pretty pool. This is very, very nice to see the balance of your cluster, to see how your volumes are, to see how the data spread across your capacity drives. The other one is align virtual machines with your storage. So with storage space direct and any CSV cluster, aligning the virtual machines with where your storage is mounted gives you a better performance. So if we've tested this with the VM fleet, and if your virtual machines and the CSV are on different nodes, your performance can drop by 50%. So if you are high, you need high data, or let's say high response and good low latency, align your virtual machines with your storage. So meaning put your virtual machine on where your storage on the owner of the CSV where your storage is located. Another thing from Romancere is a audit S2D script. It can audit your S2D cluster and make sure that everything is lined up correctly, or that all your nodes have the same configuration. Tip number 16, patching your network drivers and firmware. Always reapply settings like priority flow control, RSS, and others, and rerun your networking scripts after you patch network drivers on your service. We've seen that for some reason, certain updates have broken settings like the priority flow control, some RDMA stuff stopped working, and then you have to reapply the settings. So always rerun your scripts and make sure that RDMA works. There is a nice PowerShell script called test RDMA that will check and see if RDMA is working. It will tell you if you have RDMA drops or whatever is happening. So always run that after patching as well. Now another question is patching, can it be automated? Yes, it can. You have two options. You have cluster-aware updating and virtual machine manager. Now cluster-aware updating is a very nice feature that's been there for a while and it works very well. You have the option of adding pre and post scripting. So you can run stuff to stop things and so on before you patch. And it's self-aware, so it stops if there's any issues or any errors. Virtual Machine Manager is a fully automated with Virtual Machine Manager. You can use baseline patches, baselines to patch to the firmware, to the patches you want, and you decide which patches that you want to put in. And it's fully automated, and it stops if there's anything issues going on. What it does not have is pre and post scripts that you can put in. Now, with patching, there has been issues where servers where your volumes has gone offline when you're patching due to some data being missed or something on one node or something. So Ben Thomas, another MVP, created some scripts and some routines on how to add something called storage maintenance mode, which is a way of setting your storage in maintenance and not and flushing your cache drives. So look at Ben's scripts in his blog post, and if you're using standard procedure or cluster-aware updates, implement his type of patching. Tip number 19. Are you behind on your patching of your clusters? Are you 6 months or more behind? Well, then we recommend offline patching. Why? Because we've seen issues where if you patch and your service hasn't been booted for a while and you try to install updates that are 6 months newer than your previous update, people have had issues. So we do recommend, if you're 6 months or more behind, shut down your cluster. So stop your virtual machines, run stop cluster, disable the cluster service on all the nodes, and then do your patching, and then revert when you're starting up again. Tip number 20, moving a storage space to direct cluster. So in some scenarios, people are moving their storage space to direct cluster from one data center to another. You can do this basically the same way as you do a offline patching. So you shut down all the virtual machines, run the stop cluster, disable the cluster service on all nodes. Then you shut down all the servers. And the very important thing is make sure you know where everything goes, meaning cables, switches, that everything is correct as it was before. So that when you boot up, it gets all the networking stuff and all that stuff up and running. And make sure there's a domain controller running before you start your Hyper-V nodes. So move it and then do all the steps in reverse. Once it's up, check that your virtual disks are okay with get virtual disk and that no storage jobs are running with get storage jobs. Once that's done, you can restart your virtual machines. So one of the other things is on tip 21 is how do you see if a disk is about to fail? So I showed you drive latency outliers, which is a really nice tool to see if there's any issues with a drive. And then the PowerShell script that you can automate to send a report that if a drive is failing or is about to fail. The other thing is you can use performance monitor. I've used this a lot when I'm troubleshooting a storage space direct cluster that somebody has reported is being slow. So what you want to do then is you want to open up Performance Monitor, go to physical disks, and then have a look at the average disk sec read, average disk sec transfer, and average disk sec write. The numbers here should be as low as possible. NVMEs and SSDs should be in the 0.00 something range. So the lower it is, the better. Is it above 0.010, then it might be something wrong with that physical disk. So if a drive fails, replacing it can sometimes be an issue. Replacing a failed drive is easy enough. You just retire it, remove it from the cluster, add the new one, it'll automatically pick it up. But replacing a cache drive should be the same. If it doesn't work automatically, have a look at my blog post here. It's a combination. I should probably write a new one, as these are from 2016 and 2017, but they still work. Now, dedupe. If you want to run dedupe, you need to tune it. You need to tune the schedule outside of backup windows. And also if you do Hyper-V replica, tune it so that it doesn't be so storage intensive while it's doing all its different things. Dave Kavula, our host, has a very nice blog post about how to performance tune your dedupe schedule. So I recommend you to look at that. Tip 24, and this is a big dedupe tip. Do not use dedupe and storage replica on a high performance system where there's a lot of load. Dave has had issues with it and others as well. And I've tried it, and if you load the cluster a little bit too much, it makes things a little bit slow. Tip number 25, once you're done setting up your cluster, you want to performance test it. So what we use is VMFleet, which is what most people do. It's used to benchmark your Hyper-V storage. It can be used for a SON as well, because it only requires a cluster and a cluster shared volume. You can download it from the link under on GitHub, and then if you want to know how to set it up, there is quite a few blog posts out there for it. I've used about 3 different ones to get mine the way I want it, so have a look. Another tip is Jeremy's VS Labs. So you should go and look at that. It's very, very, very nice. He just also posted a really nice new scenario with Grafana, which has some really nice monitoring features. It shows some really nice GUI of your performance and how the storage is in Storage Spaces Direct. It even includes CPU and memory monitoring as well. Another monitoring tool is System Center Operations Manager, which is what we recommend our clients to install, as it has a lot of things. And it's the only monitoring tool that works great with events, services, SDN. It has some predefined management packs as well that allows it to, out of the box, just monitor what you need and gives you alerts of it. But there can be some noise, so you need to use a so I recommend using a third-party web GUI to sort out all the different noises that are there. Tip 28, backup. This one is very, very important. Make sure your backup vendor supports STD and CSV or RAFS. I have seen some of the bigger vendors, not Veeam, of course, and some of those, but that does not support Storage Spaces Direct and CSV or RAFS. To name one, Backup Exec do not support it. So, and it will have cause major issues with your CSVs. Tip 29, here are some nice blogs to follow to get information about this S2D Azure Stack HCI updates or any issues we're having or anything we want to share that we've learned or done during our time. So it's Dave's blog at checkyourlogs.net, Ben Thomas's blog at bcthomas.com, Daryl Vanderpale as well. Didier Van Hoy at blog workinghardinit.work. Then you have Carsten Rockfall's blog at hypervserver.de. This one is in German, so for any German speaking people, this is the one to follow. And then, of course, my own blog, where I try to tell you as much as possible of my day-to-day S2D experiences and what's going on. And of course, last but not least, join our Storage Spaces Direct channel at slack.com. And we're also doing a Ignite 2019 Slack meetup. So go to the link below, sign up. We're going to be there on Sunday before Ignite from 1 p.m. till 3 p.m. So thank you very much for joining. Of course, you can always join my blog, of course. You can subscribe to it as well for new updates. My Twitter is Jan P. And then, of course, again, Storage Spaces Direct Slack channel. Join it if you have any issues at all, or if you just want to chat with us. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.